I am Nan Schichtel from the Grand Rapids Historical Society, and I am sorry to tell you that the Pokagon Band program with Marcus Winchester has been, will not go today. Coming to our rescue, however, and I think you will enjoy this program just as much, is Gina Bivins, who's the president of the Grand Rapids Historical Society. She is going to give us an updated version, an updated edition of her very popular program on the highways in Grand Rapids. Seymour Beiboer documents Grand Rapids freeways. So saving our day, please welcome Gina Bivins.
What I really hope is I get that much applause at the end. Or I'll just go off and cry. So yes, this is a reprisal, if you will, of a program I did in October of 2018 for the Historical Society. Came across, or was pointed out, some slides that a young man by the name of Seymour Beiboer took on the building or the destruction, the building of the urban renewal downtown and of the freeways. And we've talked a lot about, over the years, the urban renewal, but the freeways, we just didn't seem to. And I've done the program a number of times, and in the true spirit of History Detectives, I've tried to custom that program to the people I'm speaking to. And I recently did one for River House and really concentrated on what they would see if they were, when they're looking down from their perch above the freeway intersection there. And it was a lot of fun to come across some new pictures, so that's what these will be. And so Seymour, you really need to know who he is. He was born in 1922 and he passed away in 1992. He was a custodian at Congress School over on the southeast end, and he's in '69 listed as the head custodian. He never married. He lived with his parents, and then he moved in with his sister and brother-in-law. And in 1987, Seymour's brother-in-law, Alvin Hofstra, and they lived in Wyoming, donated 966 slides that were taken over the years that center on the renewal of the center of the city and the expressways being built. Also donated are 18 color and black and white photos. The number that you see, these photos that I show you today will all be from the Grand Rapids Public Museum collections. The majority being from the number at the top of your screen, which is the accession number for Seymour Beiboer's collection. They're going to show the effects of putting a major freeway or highway through the center of a major city, the second largest in Michigan, and it's taken with the lens of one person, this being Seymour. This is only going to scratch the surface. If you are interested and have a piece of paper and a pencil, you might want to write down that number. You can see all 966 slides because I'm not going to show them all. Aren't you lucky? I have added a few photos from another collection that show the churches that were demolished on the west side for the 131 project. We hear about what was taken down, and I've never seen all the pictures. There is a book gathered at the river that shows some of them, but I was able to, with a volunteer project I'm doing at the museum archives, come across these. The pink line, the north-south pink line, I hope you can see that all the way in the back, is the 131 expressway, and the yellow line going east to west is the 196. The section of freeway between Granville through downtown, meeting 196 on the east, opened at the end of 1964. Yes, I was alive. Just in case you wondered. Seymour stamped or wrote information on each of the slide mounts, and usually the month and the year. He stamped expressway on all the images pertaining to the destruction and the build of the highways. Sometimes he handwrote the name of the street, And as I worked on these slides over a period of 6 months, I put into the museum's record, I was working there at the time, I was an employee there at the time, of what was stamped and written on each mount. And so I will tell you some of what he put. When I was going to only, when I first proposed this program to the Historical Society, I was only going to do 196, but then realized that 131 was such an integral part of what he took pictures of. I'm going to show a few pictures of the demolition of a church because the year indicated on the slide, 1961, I know that it is for the building of 131. I found this, so I'm going to show this demolition of this particular church. This is the only one that Seymour totally showed. Notice the one-way sign, that's a clue. Yes, I do, and you will see, I hope. All of the churches were listed in the 1955 city directory. And there is a picture of the church prior to the demolition. It is the 2nd Street Methodist Church. It is was located at the corner of 2nd and Turner. The previous slides show its demise. This and a few other images of churches are taken from another set of photographs that were recently uploaded into the museum's database. This one, rather than give the accession number for all of these, because you'd be writing all the time, there's about 9 of them. So, like I said, this was done. I did a program for the River House condominiums, and these would all be churches they could see from, if they were up high enough, and looking out toward the north. These are basically churches between Bridge Street and just north of Leonard Street, and basically from Turner to the river. And that all came out. Now, the freeway doesn't encompass all of that, but they were going to put in between Bridge and Leonard Street, they were going to put in an industrial park. So you'll note, if you ever drive that way, that there is only one house left standing in all of that. So this is the old Christian Reformed Church. It was located at 903 Scribner, and odd number structures on Scribner were all demolished at that time. So it means everything on the west side of the street on Scribner was demolished, the old Christian Reformed Church. This is First Presbyterian. The cornerstone was laid in, not of this particular one, in 1856. But it was at 317 First Street at Scribner. And the congregation later moved to 2825 Leonard Northwest in 1963. That date should make you realize that was when they were starting to tear everything down for the freeway. Church of God at 645 Front. Front once ran, the Public Museum of Grand Rapids sits at the corner of Pearl and Front. Now, if you go north, you're going to cut across the Ford Museum and the parking lot north of it and the Varnum building, and then you will reconnect right by what we now know as the Fish Ladder. That's where Front starts again. So just use your imagination to see that. So this was at 645 Front. And almost all the buildings on the east side of Front were demolished for an industrial park. This is St. Paul Episcopal at 610 Turner. All buildings on the east side of Turner, even numbers, were torn down. They built a new church at 3412 Leonard in 1961, and it's now River of Life Ministries. So that's about where Remembrance and Leonard split off, for those who know that end of town. This is the Scribner Avenue Baptist Church. It was located at 1236 Scribner. It moved in 1961, the year all these were coming down, to 1142 Broadway and became Broadway Baptist. In 1972, they moved to Richmond Street and became Fairhaven Baptist. You see all these different denominations. I hope you can see what's at the bottom. I'm going to pretend I can pronounce it. And unless there's, who wants to try that? This is audience participation. Anybody? Bravo. Applause. I won't have that memorized, but I thank you. It is better known as the Netherlands Reformed Church, and it was located at 1044 Turner, at the east side of Turner, even numbers, again, all torn down for the freeway. And from 1880 to 1920, this building was the place of worship for the German Methodist Episcopal congregation. Ahavas Israel from 1920 to 1949, and Unity Church from 1949 until its removal for the freeway, August of '61. It's located at 528 Scribner, the southeast corner of Scribner and 2nd. German Methodist Episcopal. And the Wesleyan Methodist Church at 1302 Turner, corner of Crosby. It merged with Fairview Wesleyan, now located 3 Mile near Alpine. And I don't know if that might have closed in recent years. No, it did not. I just remembered where it is. Okay. Sometimes Seymour was more detailed in what he stamped and wrote on the slide mount. Those houses that have been raised were on the west side of Scribner and the east side of Turner. This photograph was taken on March 25th, 1961. The houses standing should be on the west side of Turner, but I didn't know which block. So my husband is long-suffering in my, can we go look, can we go look? So we did. And we found this block of houses, and they are all still standing. They are north of Leonard. I do find some irony in the road closed sign. Yeah, or duh. Yeah, the road's closed. The church shown in the previous slide was located across the street from these houses. Now, not only were these churches taken out, those neighborhoods were greatly disturbed by the fact that where they went to church and the people from the neighborhood that they knew because of that was all very much disturbed also. March 25th, 1961, same date as the last slide, is the Townhouse Motel. How many remember the Townhouse Motel? Its last iteration, while it still stood, was a halfway house. It was directly behind the Row Hotel and is about at the site where they show the movies in the summer in Grand Rapids. It was torn down as, the construction in the foreground is the foundation that forms the new post office, if you remember the new post office. And the Grand Trunk Railroad Depot was torn down to build the post office. Just so in case I said it wrong, look who's president. Oh, two. As far as the eye can see, this is September 1961. You know, I can't say exactly where this was. There's not enough detail. But just as far as the eye can see, these were homes. Remember that. February 1962, St. Mary's Church is in the background. This is now going to become a common theme. St. Mary's Church remained. I don't know if the Roman Catholics had some little, I would say it's the Germans, but in fact, several German churches were torn down, or churches affiliated with those who came, like the Lutheran Church. So I just like to think the German Catholics, of which I am one, would have been the deciding factor. Bridge and Scribner, the sign is right there. 1962, Bridge Street, looking west, southwest. The building on the right is, at that time, the Volunteers of America, but is today Swift Printing and the Ojibwa building. Iroquois, thank you, had the wrong tribe. Appreciate it, I truly do. But most of those other buildings in this picture are long gone. I love this picture, although I do love a lot of the others, but I love this one because here's a girder coming down the street. How do they get them there? On city streets. St. Mary's and a peek at the Alt Mortuary. It's just toward us from the St. Mary's. It's not the square Italianate style house. It's now a law office, I believe, but many West Siders, especially the Germans, were buried out of that. April 1962, girder in Bridge Street looking west. Volunteers of America Gospel Mission is at 400 Bridge, and Swift Printing is at 404 Bridge. So it was there. Walter Gutowski Sr., Walt Gutowski Jr. now runs that. Swift now takes up the whole first floor of the building. It was this building that Douglas Newman stepped out of on his way to get his first haircut in the 1940s. He saw the modern Standard Oil station directly across Bridge Street. He and his grandfather crossed Mount Vernon, then stepped across Bridge Street to the middle of the block to Johnny Nagel's barber shop. It was torn down by the freeway. It would have been at the right in this photo. September 1962, looking west on Bridge Street, note the Capital Lunch sign. On the right, Capital Lunch in its later years was the forerunner of God's Kitchen. As the one-room rental population moved from the West Bridge Street neighborhood and from the Michigan Monroe area began filling the rentals on Division south of Fulton, the soup kitchen moved to where God's Kitchen is today on Division across from Guiding Light and the Cathedral of St. Andrew. River House condos are now on this site. Who doesn't love this picture? It's a girder walker. Scares the bejesus out of me. And I'm not even sure he has a harness. It's 1962. Did not? No. I didn't think so. I don't want to think about that. November 1962, west on Bridge Street from Front Street. The building in 1955, excuse me, included boarding houses, Haven of Rest Rescue Mission, the Golden Slipper Restaurant, Capital Lunch Sandwich Shop, Washington Shoe Repair, Washington Hat Cleaners, Wells Exterminating Service and Supply Company, an Old Kent Bank branch, and a couple of barbers. And that's certainly not all. October of '62, looking north on Scribner from Pearl Street. I was fascinated by this photo since I worked at the new museum even before it was finished. And when I found this image, I immediately walked to the corner where the Holiday Inn is downtown and looked north because it just didn't look right. And then I saw the spire of St. Mary's Church. And they're building the expressway exit from the entrance onto where you can go straight and go 131 and go east and go on 196. They open 131 in segments, so it doesn't always look complete, but they opened it by exits. They finished it to that exit, so they opened it that far, and then it seems like one off-ramp at a time. On the right of the photo are a lot of buildings that we no longer see today. That is now the Gerald R. Ford Presidential Museum and parking lots. All of those buildings came down. October '62, pilings in the river north from Bridge Street, and there is somebody fishing at the 4th Street Dam. Or at one of the coffer dams, actually. November '62, more river work. November of '62, a bridge to nowhere. That's quite a drop off. January '63, a snowy wasteland. The building on the left is the Fox Brewery building. general area of where the state building is today. This photo always breaks my heart. It's March of '63. It's a wasteland. St. Adalbert's is in the distance on the right. Those houses that you see in front of or toward us from St. Adalbert's, most of them still exist today on 3rd Street between the Broadway and Dewey. And then there's the railroad tracks, and then Druki Gaines was there. But you can see all of the pillars being built for the 196. March of '63. Looks like it's actually maybe going to get done someday. Now, one quick thing about living right there. Not just the noise level, the grit in your house. Just thought I'd mention it. Just because. Straight ahead, you can see the expressway, March of '63. There's an orange to the right of center. There's that orange. Well, that's the freeway girders that we saw. To the left of center is the Row Hotel and the buildings that are now missing. Consider again the proximity of living so close to all of this construction. June of '63, ramp cutting through on the right and the Row Hotel. And the United States Postal Building has been built. That was started in 1961. So anybody not know where the post office is downtown? I don't know. June of 1963. On the west side of the river is low country, if you will. That flooded. It was when there were bad floods on the Grand, it went west because, as we know, there's hills toward the east. And this is, I don't know exactly where this is, but I know it's on the east side of the Grand River because of all the dirt they removed. When you're going on the 196 expressway from Fuller to the river, toward the river, you're down in there's high banks to the freeway. And a lot of that dirt needed to be moved over to the west side because they built that up. I guess that's just how they engineer these things. October '63, the Row Hotel and the beginnings of the Ottawa Interchange. The building with the curved roof line, it took me a while to figure that out. The white, they're kind of right in the center of the picture. That's the Hermitage Garage. That ended up moving over to the west side on Stocking. October 1963. Now, if you go from downtown to the northeast end of town, they've reconfigured this all again, I think. Seems to me there's been a lot of construction over there. October 1963, Emmanuel Lutheran and the new division route going up to Michigan. There's Michigan Street overpass over Division Avenue. There's a nice Victorian home toward us and the Firestone sales. October 1963, looking west on Michigan Street at the intersection of Monroe. Note the curved wall in the picture just left of center. You can see the VE, or it looks like a VE. We'll revisit that. It's not the greatest picture. Some of them are a little washed out, but I will excuse Mr. Beiboer for that. These are amazing pictures. That was torn down. I'm sad. It's from the Camera Shop collection. It's not from Seymour Beiboer's collection. It was taken in 1937, and it's just too cool not to share. It was across the street from the Row Hotel, and it was their garage. It's where the police station stood after this urban renewal, and now where DeVos Place Convention Center stands. It's about where the loading dock doors are for DeVos Place. Is that not one of the coolest deco buildings that Grand Rapids had? October 1963, a view of a house on Fairview at Hastings. On the far left is a white house. It looks like it has shutters on it, if you can see that. That house is still standing. Fairview runs along the bluff. When the big, I don't know that it was a derecho, but the big windstorm that took the roof off the apartment building recently, some of it landed on top of this. They fixed their roof right away, and that is still standing. And again, this is where they're digging down deep. And again, road closed. I know there's probably some people that would think, oh, wouldn't that be fun? I don't know, not me. I know a few people in here who might. He's not looking at me though. October 1963 again, Seymour went out a lot. By this time, 131 is complete, and the pillars in this photo are for the off-ramp to 196 West, St. Mary's Church, again. And it was a very good beacon for trying to figure out where some of these pictures were taken. So this is on Turner, and looking west toward downtown, and there's that bridge to nowhere. Boop. Now, Union High School is to the right. Imagine going to classes there. Maybe somebody here did at that time. I've met a few people who did. The noise level was atrocious. And I bet a lot of those are seniors' cars. Look at those cool cars on the street. October 1963, another view of them working on that off-ramp onto 196, and again, Union High School. October 1963, river girders over the river. They're getting there. October 1963, St. Adalbert's Church, Union High School, putting the roadbed down. I don't think anything's on fire, but I don't know why that's like that. But even though we had, somebody here I think did a smoke, the smoke inspector at one time would talk, they still had a lot of factories that were spewing. This is actually looking toward the hill on the west side, and that is the Row Hotel. And it was taken with a telephoto lens. November 1963, the Fox Deluxe Brewery building. It's kind of looking south, a little southwest. I see the McKay Tower, and to the left in the picture is Emmanuel Lutheran Church. Some of those Germans on the west side switched over to going to that Lutheran church. This has all been excavated for the Ottawa exit and other things. Now it's getting done. A little bit more, looking west, 1963. This is from Lookout, the Fairview, Hastings or Livingston? Now it escaped me. Hastings and Fairview come together there. Look at the amount of dirt moved. Look at the amount of dirt moved. Yeah, looking west, Hastings is on the right. If I had gone one more slide, I would have known that. January 1964. March 1964, Union High School, they're getting the decking on that. That's that exit. St. Mary's Church on the left, 1964. March 1964, looking west, looking the Emmanuel Lutheran Church steeple is on your left, and the Row Hotel is directly in front of you. March 1964, again, looking west. I love this. It almost looks like it was photoshopped with this gentleman in the middle of the street. I'm not sure why he's so shadowy. Maybe it's an alien. You didn't hear me, It's almost forlorn looking, but it does give some perspective. And speaking to Jim Straub, a local historian, he related a story to me regarding a graffiti incident across from the high school he went to, Union High School. The freeway was being built right outside their building, and a student or two or three decided to do some decorating of the abutment they had built. Well, it's rather new, because it wasn't even open yet. The whole senior class was called in for an assembly so the administration could find out who did it. Jim doesn't recall that anybody was ever caught. Code of silence. November of 1964, UHS class of 64. On display at GVSU in their new Finkelstein building is a group of historic photographs. This is the one that the Public Museum provided. And this is that house again. And that I pointed out earlier that I said it looks like it has shutters on it, but that's the one where the apartment building roof blew across the street. The apartment building would be on the left where that gray house is. And that building, I think I just recently read that went up in 1972, but I'm not sure. So don't quote me. But look at the size of those machines, the construction machinery and the trucks. They're tiny. This you will all recognize if you've ever driven on 196 through town. It's the Belknap Wall. And it has the beautiful mural of the history. You can already see there's some painted out areas. It's like they graffitied it before they even got a chance to get it done. Now I have just a few what I call beauty photographs. I think Seymour Beiboer had a great eye. I think he really framed his pictures. I think the more he went out, the more he framed them. This is from April of 1962. Another from April of 1962. I think there's a children's book illustration here that could be done, or a story. I don't know. August of 64, wonderful shadow play. He must have come across this and thought, I need to do this. And even the back of that car, it just works, just fits it all in. And here's an irony. The press building and the courthouse ironwork are showing in this picture to the arrow to the left. Both are gone. That is the DeVos Place Convention Center today. The arrow in the middle of the picture, they are building the Grand Rapids Press Building. It is gone. It is now the MSU Medical Research Building. (1966). Now I put this in here for River House, but there's something new just happened in this space. This is from 1962. Or 66, I'm sorry. Seymour took a lot of pictures of downtown, and this is the Houseman Building. It was located at the corner of Lyon and Ottawa. It extended that whole block. In the background is it's not in my notes, Trust Building, thank you. One of the tallest buildings. It was a big deal because it had an elevator and everything when it was built. It is now the new Warner, Norcross and Judd Building and the Hyatt Hotel. They fill that block now. It was, when this was taken down, it was a surface lot for a very long time. I love this picture because my great-grandfather was the elevator operator at the Houseman Building. I thought it was the clothing store for years, and then he just said the Houseman Building. I didn't know that that's what this was called. And then as I got more into Grand Rapids history, I realized, oh, this building. So I always like seeing that. It does look like civil defense, but I think it might, it's a color photo and they would have been yellow. And you can see the yellow of the street light, so I'm going to say it might have something to do with maybe a logo. It looks like it might be for sale or for lease. Not sure. I'm going to take another look at that picture up close at the museum. And that's a Seymour Beiboer picture. No specific date on this picture of Monroe between Lime and Michigan, but prior to 1965, this will all be torn down for the city-county complex and other new buildings. June of '66, Monroe near Michigan Street. To the left is the Grand Rapids Press Building, which has since been replaced by the MSU Research Building. Belknap Hill is in the distance. Cucci Hardware moved to Leonard and Scribner. And we now have the Cucci Center out at Grand Valley. 1966, building the gas company at the corner of Leonard and Monroe. It is now it's been stripped of its face and being refaced. I don't know what it's going to look like, but CWD, a local company, is redoing that building. Who is? Oh, RDV is. I'm going to change that on here. I apologize. And I will end with the one that started it off for me. It is number 780 in the group of pictures. In 1963, that was done in 1963. I saw this slide for the first time while doing a research project on a mugshot book the museum owns. And one of the staff said, "Hey, look at this, Gina, you're gonna like it." Yeah, they know me. And at first glance, I thought it was the northeast side along 2nd Street somewhere between Stocking and Valley. I really thought so. My neighborhood for 16 years. But is this the underpass at Stocking? And I thought it was maybe the north side of the freeway between Diamond and Fairview. And I did a Google Street View, but the house images were too blurry to get a good look. And once I couldn't figure it out exactly, I was hooked to see all these pictures. And I later found other images that led me to believe that this is the street along the north side of the freeway near St. Isidore's looking west. And that is my presentation. I thank you.
Historical Society and GVSU's Cucci Center, thank you very much for saving us. And what a great program, isn't it? And now we have time for some questions, so please raise your hand and I will pass you.
Do you or anyone in the room know the story of the S-curve? I'm dying to know.
Well, I do, and I recently talked to an engineer who was a young engineer when that all was happening. They had to cross the river at some point, and the rail yards were on the east side of the river, and rail traffic was way, way down, and there was a lot of land there. They wouldn't have to acquire and talk to each person who owned a house and negotiate. Even though it's eminent domain, they could negotiate with the railroad. An AP&P warehouse is where the William Seidman School of Business is downtown, and the A&P warehouse was right there, and they didn't want to give up unless a lot of money was changing hands. So they actually did the S-curve a little sharper than they would have. But in fact, the engineers said the other thing is it's easier to cross a river straight across rather than on an angle because you're putting more of it over the river. So that's the story. You're welcome. I was glad to find out myself, and that was quite recently.
Of the 900 photographs.
966.
I stand corrected.
Thank you.
Aside from that amount of photos, what else did he take photos of? Was that the only thing that he was really interested in, or did he take lots of shots of other things?
Well, he took a lot of shots of downtown when it was coming down or being built. He really liked showing it being rebuilt. A lot of construction photos. But then there'd be a random photo of tulips planted at the Veterans Park downtown. Pictures from the Lookout Park, just looking down over the river valley. But not random pictures. Now, I will say that his brother-in-law donated these. There could have been more that we don't know about. He had them all developed at the camera shop based on the little plastic things. But for the most part, he was taking images of things, not just the landscape. But there were some, it'd be like, oh, pictures of planters with beautiful flowers. So most of it was construction, destruction. Yes?
Is there an estimation of the number of houses that were taken down, and where did those people go? Was it sprawl or?
I don't know how many houses were actually taken down. I do have to talk to Father Dennis Morrow because he might know for the west side. Do you know?
No, you were saying maybe Father Dennis though. Because I have Father Dennis CD.
Yes.
Do you have that?
No. I want that.
I got it from Father Dennis.
Yeah, Father Dennis Morrow is the West Side historian. He really, truly is. But those people simply had to move. A lot of those churches moved west. Some of them merged with other churches. As far as I can tell, a lot of the West Siders just kept moving down the West Side and up the hill, as we call it on the West Side. Up the hill. It is. You're a West Sider, I know. And you are too. Yes.
So with eminent domain, they basically had to sell. Did you come across any information on were they well compensated? And also the ones that were their neighbors across the street, their property values had to drop because now they have a freeway there. Were they compensated at all?
I have no evidence that they were compensated if they lived across the street and were still there. It wasn't considered great housing stock. It was first, it was new immigrant type of housing, multiple family. From all my indications, from what I've seen, they were not compensated well. But if you think, we don't probably, when we take houses by eminent domain, you get what that house is worth, not what you have to pay for another one. And once you've taken out that many houses, there's less housing stock, so all the prices go up to everyone else. I haven't seen nothing in the newspapers, though.
Were there any neighborhood associations or any other type of popular movement against this development of the expressways?
Do you know?
Not on the west side. But it wasn't until the National Historic Preservation Act passed in 1966 that anybody had any way of disagreeing with the plans that were going to happen. Had the Act of there were people who tried to stop it, but there was no legal way for them to do that. In the same way, the City Hall, people sued but lost because there was no legal, nothing legal preventing the government from doing what it was doing. And there were plenty of plans to knock down essentially what Heritage Hill is right now. It was going to be totally wiped out. But once 1966 Act went into effect, that saved the East Side.
And that's Rebecca Smith Hoffman, who has been involved in preservation movement since. She was born in 1966. Since she was born.
Do we know who made the decision to place 131 in its position rather than east or west?
The state.
The state?
It was the state and federal government. The feeling was there was a particular developer, I can't remember, there was a city planner whose name escapes me. And the idea was that you bring that freeway right into downtown and all those people are going to come. And what happened was the opposite. All those people found out they could get places quicker to work and stuff. And everything started spreading out. So it didn't work. And then to add insult to injury, to put another one right through the other way. So it just, think of visually how it breaks it up.
That's it. Thanks so much, Gina. This
You're
was
welcome.
great.